I think I still want to sort of, and I think probably a lot of our English language listeners, because English language of this podcast, are going to be fascinated as well by the implications of the outgoing pieces going to Tottenham, Mina. I think it's been such a sort of fascinating ride for both Bentancur and Kulusevski. Bentancur first, just because I suppose I was just talking about Zakaria. Funnily enough, I would say the things that I've liked about Bentancur is best are not dissimilar to what I've liked about, or I see in Zakaria. You know, he can be a good, strong holding player who wins tackles and who is very responsible with sort of passing, because both of them have at times at least had very high passing percentages, but most of it is being very cautious with the ball. Now, lately, I think Bentancur has not been responsible with the ball. I think this season he's given it away really quite often in bad ways. And that's been a big frustration for Juventus fans. And he's someone who I can see going somewhere else and reviving himself. And he's also someone who I'm worried about. And I think that Juventus have probably taken the sensible view that it's not working out here. And if we can get a good price for him, that's fine. Kulusevski, in some ways, the same story. I would say in terms of ceiling, someone who I view with a much higher ceiling. When Kulusevski arrived at Juventus, he was Serie A's young player that season. I thought he had a brilliant future ahead of him when he arrived from Parma. I actually thought he was more exciting to me than Chiesa at that time. And it hasn't worked out for him at all, partly because he occupies the same space as Chiesa, which made it a very odd decision to do them both in the same transfer window. I think that was slightly, Chiesa forced the issue, actually said, I don't want to hang around at Fiorentina anymore. You sign me now or you don't. I individually can see both these players doing better somewhere else. I hope for them as footballers that they find better situations at Tottenham. I find it an interesting, potentially combustible situation always when Antonio Conte signs players. You think there's been plenty before where he's decided Milos Krasic or someone where they come in, it's like, well, here's an interesting creative player, decides to like them, and that's it, they're done. You never see them again. But it's impossible to look at this, Mina, and not raise
Krasic.
And not raise an eyebrow a little bit, because Fabio Paratici was at Juventus. And my feeling on these two transfers is they could work out, they could not. But for sure, this is a price higher than Juventus would have been willing to sell for. I feel like Juventus would have sold these two players for at least 10 million less combined, like a month ago. And they still are able to turn it into like nice profit on the balance sheet. It's great business for Juventus, I guess, is the first thing to say.
So what you're trying to say is that Fabio Paratici is still a Juventus agent.
I'm not saying that. But
it's certainly the rumour.
But look,
that he is still there helping them, you know?
I mean, it's so funny because we talked about this, like Italian football is so full of conspiracy theories. It loves a conspiracy theory and you know, I still know Italians who have said to me with the sort of tone that you can't quite tell if they're joking or not, that they don't think that Liverpool ever sold Ian Rush to Juventus. They actually sent another player. And that's why John Aldridge showed up at Liverpool right afterwards, both with their moustaches and looked similar. Now, in fact, John Aldridge and Ian Rush did later play together at Liverpool, so that the theory has some holes. But this sort of theory does tend to get perpetuated in Italy, doesn't it?
Yeah, and of course that Marcello Lippi was an agent of Juventus when he went and tried to destroy Inter as their coach, apparently, and then went back to Juve and won everything. It is interesting because I did see the figures and I was a little bit shocked. Obviously, we know that Kulusevski is sort of looked at as 35 million, right? But you know that and the loan, they're getting more from Spurs for him. And especially it's interesting because, you know, Daniel Levy's supposed to be so tight with his money, and yet you're thinking 19 million from Bentancur plus 6 million in add-ons in terms of bonuses, some of them really easy to reach. Again, interesting. But with that, here's the thing. I don't know whether Paratici is just bad with money and sort of thinks, yeah, no, that's just how much it is. Because there's a part of me that also think he overpaid for Romero. Not because you know how much I love and I worship this defender, but it's not like there were that much competition and people trying to get Romero at the time, you know? So I don't know whether he's just bad with money, because that's why he was flinging these ridiculous figures when he was at Juventus as well. And Beppe Marotta used to sort of rein him in a bit. And when he went, he was a little bit too free and easy with the cash. Or whether not Cherubini, Arriva Bene is just very much like, yeah, this is just the way it is, you know? And he's really tight with money, obviously very corporate, very like, you know, what am I getting? And just negotiated really tough. Like, and here's the thing, Spurs had to make signings because Conte is going to lose his mind any second now. And the fans are going to lose their mind any second now. So it's a question of, it's almost like an image thing. You know, they've lost, obviously, like, their number one target to Liverpool, and they just keep losing all their targets. So for them, it was like, we have to bring in bodies to satisfy the image that we are the team that is trying to win something this season. And then there's this part of me that thinks of Harry Kane, you know, Song and Kulusevski in that forward line. And I'm like, that's going to be a very interesting forward line. Like, I'm interested to see how that goes. And Bentancur, I don't know what happened with Bentancur. I think it's you know, he's young. It was many different coaches. Each of them wanted something different from him. And I just feel there's a part of him that's a little bit like done, you know, like you know that when he wants to do well, which I feel like was against Milan, because he knew there were scouts. He knew that Aston Villa had come to watch him. He was fantastic in that match. So I know that Bentancur has it. He's not a player that I rely on heavily in terms of, you know, like, I think he needs a veteran alongside him. I think he plays better when he had an older figure, whether it was, you know, Matuidi and Pjanic. I think he works better with communication. He obviously is technically good. He's good on the ball. He's good off the ball. But I just feel like he's just done. Like, I mean, he wanted to move, and he made it clear to Juventus that he's happy to go to Spurs. So that tells you a lot as well. You know, whereas there are others who are like clinging on to Juventus for dear life, he made it clear alongside Arthur that we're both happy to go. So that tells you something. He wants a new adventure, and I think that he has enough to show whether or not he can. I believe in Conte and players like Bentancur. I believe less in Conte and players like Eriksen, but he managed with that obviously in the end and turned him, you know, and they had a beautiful relationship towards the end. But I like these types of players because I feel like Bentancur will listen to his instructions and will give him what he needs. It's just obviously, you know, it's whether or not he can make an impact straight away. Kulusevski, I don't know. Because I feel like I don't want too much tactical rigidity. And I feel like Devers just let him go. Just sort of said to him, like, you're the kid, you know, and just have fun. Just go direct, vertical football, you know, unleash those long limbs of yours and show me what you can do. And everything was based around his instinct. So he wasn't having to think too much and who shall I deliver the ball to and where shall I move and which player am I supposed to be like closing down and he has done a lot of that with Allegri, and he's trying so hard. And I could see like there is so much potential in this player. I am so upset to let him go, honestly. But I feel like, you know, it's not going to work out with him. I do think it's interesting that his words when he left was, I hope to come back to Juventus. You know, I think that tells you a lot about how he feels. I just don't think Allegri is necessarily the right coach for him. I do think that he needs to be let off the leash, and I'm not entirely sure Antonio Conte will give him that. So I'm interested to see that. But I feel like the Premier League is a good league for him. I think he will really shine, and he needs to shine because, you know, this is a player who needs to make a difference for Sweden as well. And there's a lot of talent there, and he needs to be showing that on a consistent basis as opposed to only coming on for a few minutes or playing a half here and there and being yelled at for not making exactly the right decision that he's making. So it's a deal that works for both of them. But I think the one that we're most excited about as Juventus fans is hopefully Aaron Ramsey leaving because that's just been this constant saga and a drain on the wages. I mean, he's so expensive. He never plays, you know. And it's just something that everyone keeps asking. It's just an annoying thing that hangs over them. So obviously we don't know where he's going, and that's the latest rumors as we were recording. But it looks like to me that Rangers seem to be sort of the place that he will go. And Juventus have agreed that if it is Rangers to pay some of the some of his wages basically. So I feel like for Ramsey, I just don't know why you don't want to play and you're pushing to like play anywhere. You know, at the end of the day, Christian Eriksen went through a lot, and you know, he wants to play at Brentford. They want him to play. He wants to show what he can do. I think Ramsey can't just keep, no, I don't like this club. I don't like this club. Come on, show us. You're a great player. You shouldn't ever be outside of the squad. So show us what you can do.
Just to remind our listeners, when Mina says we about Juventus fans, she's using the royal we, or she's using a we referring to her and other Juventus fans. One Juventus fan in this podcast.
Yeah.
I just want to have one last thought on Kulusevski, which is that the Paratici working for Juventus thing is a joke. Like, there's conspiracy theories that happen in Italy. I'm at least not being very serious with that. But I think it is worth reminding ourselves, actually, that it was Paratici who signed Kulusevski for Juventus, and in fact at the time was so outspoken in his enthusiasm for that player specifically. They signed him in January but left him on loan at Parma until the end of the season. And Paratici said at the time, if it was up to me, he'd be here right now. That was how eager he was to have him. So that is a genuine enthusiasm.
And he loved Bentancur.
Yeah.
When we were talking about Tevez, like, he kept saying, like, this kid's going to be something. Like, I really want him to be part of the deal. And so Marotta, like, when, you know, the time when that was being negotiated, he really did like Ben. So he has gone for players that he likes. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I do see that as well.
Yeah.